So, you've heard the story of the phoenix, and what a beautiful story it is too, because in times of darkness, in times of death, in times when we feel like we've been swallowed by a whale, when everything comes to an end and it all seems so dark, the story of the phoenix, the story of the phoenix gives us hope. That image of the bird rising from its own ashes, right, is there to remind us when we're burning out, when we're struggling, right? It's a beautiful story. The part of the story that you probably didn't know is that the phoenix builds its nest out of cinnamon, right? So I've got this beautiful little phoenix nest here, waiting for a phoenix to alight and land and build its nest there. Except perhaps that phoenix is me. So anyway, that is a theme we're going to come back to as I touch upon this incredibly common and therefore kind of neglected, overlooked and overwhelmed herb. Herbalists and naturopaths aren't big on phoenix. They don't prescribe phoenix very often at all. Cinnamon, they don't prescribe cinnamon very often at all. However, every culture that's encountered cinnamon has been amazed by it and treated it like gold, right? We've all treated it like gold, including our own ancestors. The story of the phoenix nest is a Greek story, the cinnamon quills of the phoenix nest. And the Arabs had some similar stories, phoenixes and nests and birds and cinnamon and stuff as well. Everyone that encountered cinnamon went, whoa! Not only this tastes good, but this is a potent medicine, right? A potent medicine that sits alongside the image of the phoenix. It has the capacity to reignite the spark of life and for you to be able to give birth to yourself anew, right? So how do we make sense of this? Well, to begin with, I guess we'll just say it's a spice, right? And now return yourself if you are of European stock like me. If not, then maybe this exercise doesn't work. But for me, if I return myself to my Anglo-Saxon Celtic lineage, and the turnips and the cabbages, didn't have potatoes most of the time. Anyway, there was nothing that smelt or tasted like this. This kind of herb is of the sun, right? And that means it grows closer to the sun. It grows in more equatorial regions than European herbs, right? And so it has captured up that solar yang. It's captured it all up and caught it down there on the equator, at the Spice Isles, Indonesia, right? Regions like this, India, Kerala, South India, right? Borneo. The best cinnamon I ever got was a cinnamon quill, one quill that was this big but rolled up fat, and I bought it off the back of a Dayak hunter-gatherer man. The Dayaks from Borneo were the headhunters of Borneo, and I was trekking through the forest, hanging out, staying at different Dayak villages with no guide, no map, as only a crazy 23-year-old Jimmy would do. And this little guy, he must have been 4'10" or something, just came padding through the forest, and he had this backpack made of rope and vines on, and it was just stacked up with cinnamon quills. And he had but cinnamon quills like this, but it had only just skinned the tree. And so it wasn't dry like this, it was fresh and soft. It had just been rolled. And through sign language, I managed to communicate that I would give up just about anything to be able to get some of this from him. And I left with this huge ass cinnamon quill like that. And it was incredible. So anyway, I'm rambling. It comes from that part of the world. It doesn't come from Europe. When the Europeans encountered it, they were just like, not only is the flavor electrifying, right? But the effects are remarkable. And it's hard to think of herbs that are indigenous to Europe that have this kind of action, right? So we have to remember it's an exotic herb. Just because you can get it for $2 in the supermarket or a sawdust version of it shouldn't impact the way in which we see it. It's an incredibly exotic herb from a very, very far away magical land like Borneo that is growing closer to the sun because of the equator, and it has sucked up that solar yang qi and concentrated it in there. And then when you eat it, you get some of that, right? So let me jump into some of the specifics of this now, having given a rambly storytelling introduction to cinnamon, hopefully enough to ignite and inspire your passion for this herb, which you've been overlooking. So it's sweet and pungent, right? Pungent, spicy, right? That means it has a heating action to it, right? It means it helps with phlegm, but it ignites, right? It has a heating action. Almost all the spices do. It has a sweet taste to it as well. It's incredibly sweet, cinnamon, right? It's spicy and sweet. And that sweet taste is there in maca, is there in ginseng, is there in a range of our adaptogenic tonics, right? So it has a tonic action and a heating action. We know just by its flavor alone, just there. And so what it does, in a nutshell, is that it captures up that solar energy and then it delivers it to the body. It reminds the body, it ignites that furnace in the body again. And that solar energy is your yang qi. That solar energy is what in the Western Hippocratic tradition is called the innate heat, the spark of life, that which is coming from God's hands to Adam's hand in the Sistine Chapel. It's just like life is heat and death is cold. That's why the grave is cold and the corpse is cold, right? It reignites that fundamental process of life, right? And that's its basic action. And everything else we want to see stemming from this capacity to nourish the innate heat, the vital spark, the solar yang qi within, right? So what are some examples of how it does this? Well, one of the things is it ignites Agni. It ignites the digestive fire, right? So it's good for digestion. And it's particularly good for things like chronic diarrhea. It's good for, it has a whole range of antimicrobial and antiparasitic actions. The combination with clove is remarkable. Cinnamon and clove as a antimicrobial, antiparasitic, anti-candida combination is just, it's big, right? The cinnamonic aldehydes and the phenolic compounds of eugenol in clove. So chronic diarrhea, candidiasis, a whole range of parasites, dysbiosis, right? So it ignites the digestive fire. So that's one of the things. It also, with that spiciness, it moves the blood. Like a lot of spices, like chili, right? It's got this like blood moving quality and you can get flushed from it, right? And so that's important. Cold hands, cold feet, moving the blood. In particular, it moves the blood through the muscles and joints. And so it is helpful for pain, right? For a whole range of pain. Pain that is not fundamentally hot by nature. Rheumatic pain, arthritic pain, pain that is fluidy joints, or pain that is spasm focused, right? Not really red, hot rheumatoid arthritis. You wouldn't use it for that sort of pain. So it moves the blood and it can resolve pain. It has these anti-inflammatory qualities when it's used in the right way. I mentioned dampness. It by igniting that fundamental furnace of the body, then it helps cook everything down better, right? And dampness, the sort of stuff that gets in your ears and your nose and your throat and your lungs and your nether regions and this phlegmy sort of stuff, that's poorly metabolized, poorly digested, poorly cooked down stuff, right? So it helps with dampness. So anywhere where you have a condition of cold dampness, right, kind of, you know, all of that sort of stuff, then cinnamon is also well indicated. It's also great for the common cold. In Chinese medicine, they use a form of cinnamon front and center for the whole range of common colds, not fevers as such, but colds, right? And it can help with body aches inside that. It can help open the pores and give you a sweat. It has all these immune stimulating things, stimulating the fire of your martial military immune system. It's just like puts a fire underneath those guys and everything gets moving like that. So helpful for the common cold, right? You've seen the logic here constantly. It's all going through about this igniting, this heat, the phoenix's nest, right? Cinnamon quills are the nest of the phoenix. Jesus, so beautiful. It's so beautiful. What else have we got? Well, anyone that's, you know, been keeping a track of the research and buying through our nutraceutical companies, then you probably heard, you know, like frankincense is an anti-inflammatory and cinnamon is good for insulin sensitivity, like resensitizing insulin and helping with high blood pressure, high blood sugar, and diabetes. Yes, right? So it does all of those things. But we want to see all of those things there in the context of someone that's gotten damp, primarily through eating too much sugar. So you're constantly drinking cooling apple juice and sugary stuff, then you start off with the snots, you start off with dysbiosis and candida, you start off with sort of mucus in the back of your throat or your ears, or, you know, a little bit of thrush or things like this. You start off there through having too much sugar before you land in type 2 diabetes. And we're going to restrain this to type 2 rather than type 1 diabetes. So it's useful for diabetes when you see that person has a cold background, a cold, damp, snotty kind of a background, right? And they've had too much sugar and they've got other signs of dampness and cold and those metabolic fires going out. So those are a range of the different examples. There's more, there's always more. But forget the examples for a moment. And as we finish this up, I want you to focus on that sense that the preciousness of this. The Chinese use it alongside a herb that is probably more revered than ginseng, aconite, the primary herb to ignite a collapsed yang, the most poisonous herb in the world. They use it in a very sophisticated manner and they process the poison out of it and stuff as well. But in terms of igniting the yang, this is there with aconite, this incredibly ginseng-like it goes on the shelf in Chinese medicine, roughly, with aconite and ginseng, right? As these yang tonics, right? And so it here's the final one to close on, is that it can be helpful for fertility. It can be helpful for erectile dysfunction. It can be helpful in conceiving. It can, and it does this by igniting libido, right? It does this by igniting yang, and yang is necessary for all of those things. The creative heat within us, right? Like the forge of Hephaestus, the master smith's or the alchemist's fire that produces all of the metals and weapons and all the things, the creative fire, right? It ignites. It is a spark from Hephaestus's forge, and it ignites that creative fire within us so that we may create and give rise to the next generation. But before giving rise to the next generation, it increases libido, right? And what is libido? Well, technically speaking, libido is not desire for sex. It is lust for life, right? And so the phoenix's nest, cinnamon quills, it nourishes the sun within, the spirit within. It ignites that spark of life within. And this flows into the spark in the digestive fire, and it flows into the spark in the loins, and it flows into the warmth and heat and passion of the blood. It flows into all of these arenas. But we have to understand its sacred and celestial origins if we're going to prescribe it well. So never, ever look at cinnamon in the same way again, sweet friends, and turn to it like a friend in need and prescribe it with reverence and gratitude and gusto. I present to you the phoenix's nest.